We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. We don't show up for clout. We show up when power gets sloppy and the truth gets buried under ego. So listen close, because what just happened in Davos was not leadership. It was a meltdown in a suit. A scared, pathetic, cognitively addled Donald Trump walked into Davos and walked out a total loser, rattled, embarrassed, and desperate to control the room. He came in swinging at allies like a bully who only feels tall when everyone else is forced to sit down. He started threatening Greenland and Denmark and Europe, acting like the world is his personal property list. And then right in front of everyone, he did what he always does when he's out of his depth. He got confused and just kept talking anyway. He confused Greenland with Iceland. Not a quick slip. He kept saying, "We're going to take over Iceland if it's the last thing we do." Then he claimed he did some sort of deal. A deal with Greenland and Denmark, supposedly. But no one knows what the hell the terms are. It's the same scam every time. Make a loud claim, provide no details, and dare everyone to argue with the fog. People started guessing what he even meant. Some said it's like that UK-Cyprus deal idea, where Trump would just claim the existing American military bases are part of the United States. And you're left asking, what are we even doing here? What is America doing here at all? And here's where the fear really shows. Trump didn't just embarrass the country on stage. Behind the scenes, he acted like the petty coward he is. He ordered the State Department to ban California Governor Gavin Newsom from giving a speech at the Pavilion area, where Newsom was supposed to do a keynote fireside address. In Davos, there's the USA House, like how the Olympics have pavilions. And this time, for the first time in recent history, or maybe ever, the State Department took control of the USA House. It wasn't under private control. The State Department ran it. Newsom was supposed to speak at an event sponsored by Fortune magazine. There was going to be a fireside chat about his observations on Trump's disastrous Davos speech, the one where Trump called Greenland Iceland and praised dictators and did all that garbage. But under pressure from the White House and the State Department, the USA House, operating out of a church in Davos, Switzerland, denied Newsom entry and refused to let him give the speech. That's how weak Trump is. He can't handle criticism. He can't handle commentary. He can't even handle the idea of someone reacting to him in public. So he tries to shut it down. How utterly pathetic can you be? And Newsom didn't let it slide. He kept trolling Trump, making posts like Dozy Dawn conquers Davos, with a photo of Trump sleeping while world leaders point and laugh. The message was simple. Trump isn't commanding respect. He's a joke, and what Trump did at Davos fits into what the narrator called a humiliation tour, an American decline tour, where the rest of the world is laughing in America's face, and former allies are horrified. There was a moment where a CNBC host pressed him. "You say you did a deal with Greenland and Denmark. Tell us about it." And Trump, like always, answered with nothing dressed up as something. He said, "We have a concept of a deal." Concepts, great concepts. That's the brand promises without substance. Fraud with a microphone. And while all this is happening, regular people are trying to live. They're trying to afford health care, afford rent, get paid with dignity, get a good education, afford groceries. But Trump is out there threatening allies and selling concepts like a con man at a casino. Then comes the authoritarian rot. In the original, Trump starts talking about how we need a dictator. Sometimes you need a dictator, he says, while representing the United States of America. He brags we got great reviews and slips into that gross fantasy where he frames himself as the dictator type and acts like it's all just common sense. And on that same day, the narrator points to Trump's so-called board of peace talk, with names like Putin, Netanyahu, and Lukashenko being presented as part of Trump's alliance. And then again, Trump mixes up Greenland and Iceland. Newsom's reaction is basically, can we stop grading this idiot on a curve? Can we behave like grown-ups and say enough is enough? You're threatening to invade the wrong country. Because you're so cognitively addled, you're going after the wrong ally. Trump rambles about how they're not there for us on Iceland, and even claims the stock market took a dip because of Iceland. It's absurd, it's embarrassing, and it's dangerous. Then Fox asks NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte whether Greenland's status was discussed as part of this framework deal. Rutte says no, it did not come up. He says the focus was the huge Arctic region, where change is taking place and where the Chinese and Russians are more active, and how to protect it. In other words, Trump's deal talk is smoke. At that point, the narrator turns directly to the people of Greenland and Denmark and says you can't give this guy an inch. The narrator calls Trump a predator and says he's been a predator his entire life. He's a felon, He's described as a sexual predator, with the narrator referencing that he was found liable in a civil case of sexually assaulting a woman. The narrator references the tape where Trump says he grabs women by their vaginas because he's rich, and references claims about him inspecting girls naked at beauty pageants. The narrator calls him sick, calls him a psycho, and even alleges he's covering up a child sex trafficking ring. The warning is blunt. Don't give him an inch, because he'll take everything. And then you've got state regime media running interference. Jesse Waters on Fox tries to turn it into a joke, saying critics need to pick a lane. Is Trump a 4-year-old brat or an aging, mentally ill dictator? The response in the original is simple. The speech was dangerous, disrespectful, and unhinged. You watched him ramble, tell stories, even try to do voices. It's embarrassing for the United States. Back home, the narrator says Trump's approval is atrocious and throws out numbers to prove he's widely hated. Georgia is cited at 18.6%. Texas is cited as negative 17.2%. Maine 18.4%. Michigan 15,8%. Ohio 9,2%. North Carolina 13.6%. Florida negative 7.5%. Mississippi negative 6.9%. South Carolina negative 7.3%. The point is not the decimals. The point is the collapse, and it makes Trump look even smaller. That he was so scared in Davos he wouldn't even let Newsom speak. Then Will Cain on Fox shows up to praise Trump's deal as some infinite deal, and brings on former U.S. ambassador to Denmark and Greenland, Carla Sands. Even she admits she doesn't know what Trump ended up with. She says Trump had been unequivocal that the U.S. had to own it, and she thought it might be something like free association, but she doesn't know what it is. She says she's looking forward to learning as much as everyone else about the framework. Then the original pivots to Vladimir Putin saying Russia would contribute $1 billion to the Board of Peace from frozen assets, and that remaining funds frozen in the United States could be used to rebuild territories once a peace deal is signed. The narrator then alleges the billion goes directly to Trump, that Trump takes it and puts it in a Qatari bank account. The narrator connects that allegation to claims about oil money and Venezuela, saying an authoritarian there agreed to allow Trump to take oil money so Trump can sell oil personally to his right-wing oligarch friends, enriching himself with no oversight. From there, the narrator calls it an ultimate betrayal to pro-democracy activists connected to Venezuela, saying they believed there would be a path to democracy, that they can't go back, and that political prisoners were released only for more people to be imprisoned. The narrator frames it as betrayal of the people of Iran too, saying Trump told them to protest and promised America had their back, but then allowed thousands to be massacred. The narrator adds betrayal of Kurdish allies in northern Syria, saying Trump threw them under the bus. And the through line, according to the narrator, is simple. Trump likes authoritarians. He admires them. That's why he likes Putin and Lukashenko. And that's why he hates allies like Denmark and the European Union. Newsom's commentary comes back. He says stop normalizing deviance, stop grading Trump on a curve. He says the statements are jaw-dropping and fly in the face of facts, evidence, and common sense. He says Europeans might think the speech is new, but for Americans there was nothing new. And even Trump claiming he's willing to negotiate isn't new, because the EU has been saying it wanted to negotiate for over a year. Then the narrator adds 2 final points. One, the Melania movie is described as an utter disaster and a total bomb, mocked as a phony Melania movie, with the narrator saying Amazon paid her $40 million so Bezos can get into Trump's good graces. 2, on a much more serious note, whistleblowers inside the Department of Homeland Security and other agencies allegedly have an ICE memo showing ICE and Border Patrol are not using judicial warrants. They are using administrative warrants, basically their own forms, and they're breaking into homes, rounding people up, and grabbing U.S. citizens too. The narrator says they claim they're looking for people with final detention orders, but says we know they're going after U.S. citizens and people living here, and without judicial warrants. The narrator calls it a total violation of the Fourth Amendment, right against unreasonable searches and seizures. And that's the conclusion. This is what the Trump regime is doing. The narrator calls Trump a scared, cowardly failure of a human being and says his legacy will be one of the worst human beings to ever walk the planet. Vile, pathetic, deranged, traitor, treasonous, criminal, felon, sexual abuser. Then the original closes with the call to action to hit subscribe, push the channel, and stay plugged in. And here's how Anonymous ends it. We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. If you're tired of being lied to, if you're tired of watching cruelty and chaos get treated like entertainment, don't just watch and scroll. Share this. Speak up. Subscribe. Stay plugged in. And make sure the truth travels faster than the propaganda.